So welcome everyone to the 13th Annual Growing Online Learning Conference presented by Illinois Community Colleges Online. The theme for the 2021 conference is Teaching, Learning, and Caring. We hope that this year's conference is beneficial as we continue with teaching and learning in challenging times. My name is Robert Lucas. I'm a technology specialist at Far Southern Illinois' Shawnee Community College, and I'll be moderating today's session entitled Designing for Kindness. ILCO would like to thank Heartland Community College for providing the web conferencing platform for use in this year's conference. Please note that captioning is available for the conference sessions. All right, moving on here. Our schedule, briefly, for the 3 days is on the screen. It can also be found at the conference website at ilco.net under Resources and Events. All right. Links to attend live sessions will be found on the conference website and your registration confirmation email. If you have any questions on accessing the sessions, please contact Jeff Newell at jeff.newell@illinois.gov. Recordings of these presentations and handouts will be available at the conference site on ilco.net following the conference. For today, leading this session today, this afternoon, is Kona Jones, an extraordinary instructor of statistics who is also the director of the Teaching and Learning Center at Richland Community College in Decatur, Illinois. As an aside, if you're in the Decatur area, I encourage you to stop by and tour Richmond's fabulous Carroll Center for Innovative Learning. Kona and Richland continue to expand our expectations of what effective teaching and learning can look like, both online and face-to-face. So, having said that, please help me welcome Director and Instructor Kona Jones.
Hi, everyone. It's good to see you all. As soon as Rob stops sharing, I will go ahead and pull up my screen. And we will get started. Oh, there we go. Okay, hold on just a second. Okay, so welcome today. We're going to be talking about designing for kindness. And it feels like a perfect segue for those of you who might have been at this morning's opening session. Wow. Was that not just an amazing session? For any of you who were there, it just really, I mean, I felt like it had so much value and so much relevance to what we've been feeling as both a teacher, as an administrator working with other teachers, and then just someone who's working with students. So it seemed very appropriate then coming into this session. And I kind of went back through mine and thought, wow, this is just such a great fit because we all are going through so much. And I loved some of the optimism that people had this morning, but I also I felt that exhaustion from people. I felt that, being tired and kind of just, we've all got a lot on our plates. So in this session, the really important thing is kindness is just the glue that connects people and creates community. So I know we're all going through a tremendous amount, even in the best of circumstances right now, things are still crazy, right? No matter how good it is, there's still that underlying craziness. There's still that underlying stress that's kind of weighing on us. Even myself today, I wasn't expecting us to have, the polar vortex come through and, 10 inches of snow. And so my children are home today with me. Thankfully, my husband is home as well. But if you hear the pitter-patter of little footsteps, just like our students, and many of you, I'm home with my children today, which makes preparing and doing sessions like this extra fun, right? And so that's where that kindness comes in. So kindness to ourselves as well as kindness to our students, recognizing that there's so much going on in all of our lives And so just kindness is what kind of keeps us going. And so what else? The single most important strategy we can use to help our students to succeed in our courses is just to care about them as learners and as human beings. So for this presentation and what I'm going to be talking about, I'm going to kind of be wearing more of my instructor hat. And this is something that I truly believe in. Also, this quote comes from an amazing book, super relevant. So if you haven't checked it out, it's one to check out. I've got the citation there at the bottom. But the biggest thing, so if we want our students to succeed, we really need to make sure that we're caring about them as learners, but also as just human beings who are going through a lot and are struggling just like the rest of us are. I found this super appropriate. The first time I saw this, and it's in the blog that I linked to here, it just resonated so much. And the blog has to do with Maslow before Bloom. And that if students aren't, if they aren't getting, that hierarchy, if they're not meeting their basic needs, how can you expect them, right, to be cognizantly able to work their way up through and to be doing the best quality work, right? So if they're worried about money, if they're worried about their kids, if they're worried about, their heat, if they're worried about all of these things, how can they be focused on your course? And so that's where that kindness comes in, and showing kindness to students in order to kind of get them pulled back into your course. Because if students feel like you care, they're going to be more connected to you and they're going to be more connected to the course. So even if they're going through a lot of really awful stuff, that connection will help them still be successful in your course. I feel like I shouldn't have to say it, but I want to make sure I'm not saying kindness equals easy. So I'm not saying your courses should be less rigorous. I'm not saying, that, oh, we should all be, in fact, my husband even will sometimes kind of say, oh, you're just being too nice. But I don't think nice has to equal easy or lack of rigor. In fact, I often have students say that my course is one of the ones that keeps them the busiest in terms of the amount of work or the quality and level of work that they need to do in my class. So kindness can still have rigor. And that's really important to make sure that we kind of have that framed in our minds. And from the student perspective, why is this so important? This is a quote from one of my students from last semester. And it's, I really appreciate your help, encouragement, and time, even when I didn't complete my work and was giving up. You were kind, considerate, and thorough with wanting us as students to succeed. And so that's really, I saw that feedback and I was like, wow, that's pretty deep. For the student to be able to, conceptualize that and verbalize it and to feel like that I cared and I wanted them to succeed even when they didn't complete their work, even when the student was ready to give up, that by me being compassionate and kind, I was able to get them through. And I will say for this student, the student did make it through to the end of the course and was successfully complete the course. Now, did the student have a lot of issues? Yeah, just like the rest of us, the student was dealing with a lot of things, but the student was able to successfully complete the course. So kind of for the rest of this session, we're going to be talking about how you can approach your course to reduce student anxiety and promote kindness and community, because that's what's really important. We need to be able to reduce that anxiety level, because if students, you remember Maslow before Bloom, if students if they can't focus on their higher level stuff, so if they're not getting their basic needs met, we're never going to get them to learn. And then also just promoting that kindness and overall community spirit, which helps connect us and helps all of us get through. So build and conduct your course with kindness in mind. We're going to talk about before class starts, and that's the building. And then we're going to talk just a little bit about that first week of class, which is so important because first impressions are lasting ones for all of us, and then kind of throughout the semester. So that's a little bit in terms of where we're going to go with this. If at any point you have questions, comments, feel free to go ahead. I saw we had a chat session 1. Great visual for extra credit Zoom meeting to just check in. Yeah, so here we are. Let's go ahead, and I will say that, and I'm going to share the slides later, that I have like all of this on slides, but this is a lot of words and I don't normally like wordy slides. So what I'm going to do is just flip right over into my course. Now, this is my current semester course, but obviously not with my students because FERPA and all that wonderful stuff. But this is the content of my course. And I'm going to talk you through kind of those building principles. So if you're doing a rebuild of your course, if you're considering how can I maybe, do things differently for our next semester course, here's some things, because obviously most cases you're already built your course for this semester unless you have a late start one. These are things to think about in terms of the building process. I am using Canvas, full disclosure, but I feel like regardless of what learning management system you're using, you can still take these principles and apply them. It doesn't matter. It should be universal principles here, not Canvas specific principles. So for the first one, and this is a big one, is when students first enter your course, and I'm going to go ahead and go to student view. Students they want clarity, they want consistency, they want to be able to get in your course and for it to be very clear, how do I get started, right, and what's going on each week. So for me, how I do that is I structure it in a way that keeps very similar. So obviously the getting started week, it's going to be a little bit different, but if you go down into my week one, you can see I have my week one resources, and these are all of the links, all the videos. This is the link, this is all of the great course content. Then I've got my discussion, so I've got that discuss heading. I've got my learning activities, so students can clearly see these are the learning activities for the week. And then I've got our feedback, where the students can share their thoughts. And then if you go to week two, you've got that same format. So the types of learning activities might change, but overall, this format is just repeated again and again. And for students, that's very comforting. For students, they know, each week, we'll have course resources. We will discuss something. We will have learning activities, and then they're going to be able to share their thoughts. And so this is just, stamped in, and it actually makes the building process really easy, because I know even when I'm building a new course, I'm always going to have my weekly resources. I'm always going to have that discussion. I'm then going to have some learning activities, and that's what will really vary week to week. And then I'm always going to give students that option to provide feedback. Love the format. Thank you. So that's kind of the big thing right there, right? Is that consistency in the layout. It's then also chunking the content, right? So making it manageable and getting it into a format that allows students to easily go through it. An example of this is actually my week two resources. So instead of having, the 15 links on this main module, or in this main page, instead of having, here's all of this stuff, and that makes the module maybe look huge and wildly. Instead, I've got my resources. So I, of course, have my video, right, where I'm explaining to the students, here's what we're going to do this week. And then I go into my study resources. And so here students can clearly see for the discussion, here are the two resources we're using for our discussion this week. For quiz 2, here are the quiz 2 resources. And for our first project, here are the resources for the project. So everything is clearly kind of pulled apart. Students can see what goes with each thing. If they click on these quiz 2 notes, once again, you can see that chunking of content. So you can see they need to read. They've got guided notes, and then they've got videos that go with the guided notes. So the students can go through. And this is something else that students really appreciate. They really like having your videos. But what I find students liking even more is that basically I give them an outline of what I'm going to cover. And so they can print off the outline and then watch the video and fill that in as they're going through it. And students really seem to appreciate that. Let's see, comments. Is it better not just to build resources into each assignment? That is a great question, Lori. And so in my answer to that one, I would say both. Students in the online environment are much like ourselves, and we're like, where did I see that? Where did I see that? Right? You're trying to remember, where can I find that information? And so for me, while I do have everything on the resource page, so students know every week, everything that we need to cover for this week is on the resource page. So if they go through all of this content, it is all there. They know everything they need to know. But if they go into any of these assignments, so for example, our quiz 2 finding statistics, this is the actual quiz, and look at that. There's the link to those exact same notes. So regardless of where the students go, whether they go in through the resources, which I would recommend, or whether they do, if you use Canvas, students live and die by their to-do list. Well, even if my students are living and dying by their to-do list and they go straight to the quiz, they will still find the link to those resources. It's the same thing for our discussions, the evaluation of information. All of those resources are added there, as well as in my projects. So excellent question, Lori, in terms of, is it better just to put them right in the assignments? And while I think it's really great to put them in the assignments, in fact, I would strongly, strongly advocate, make sure you're providing those links and those information, that information to your students within the assignments. Having that one main resource page, I found students do appreciate. Now, students also learn in different ways. So this is kind of like a universal design for learning. You're hitting students whether they like it. Here's on one page, here where it is kind of disseminated out a little bit. But I know for at least I've gotten feedback from students, they really appreciate having one page. And if they're like, oh, where did I find that? Where was that information before? They can always come back to this one page and they know that they can find all of the things right there. Can you show your week 1 resources student intake? Was that up in this module ship that you were talking about? I just want to make sure I'm showing the right thing. But yeah, I'm happy to show whatever you want to see. I just want to make sure that I'm going to the correct thing, if it was in here or in the next one. That was in reference to the chat that came through that said, can you show your week 1 resources student intake? And I wasn't sure if it was in the start here or if it was literally in the week 1, like in these resources. If it's literally in the week 1, so like this, or I'm sorry, I'm trying to find out which one you want, which one if anything, we can come back to it. Let's see, where was I? I don't remember intake. That's not a word that I normally use. So that way when saying student intake, it's not kind of resonating with me because I don't use that word in my course for anything. So I'm not sure which activity, which thing you want me to show. I'm sorry. If you see it again, catch the exact name and I would be happy to show that to you. So chunking materials into those small manageable parts, also chunking out assignments. And that's one that students really, really appreciate. So if you have any big projects, I know probably a lot of our English folks are already doing this in terms of, as they build to their big one main paper. But even if you're not an English teacher and you're just having, a midterm paper or a final paper or some kind of projects, I would recommend chunking. An example of this is actually, you could see in our project 2. And so Project 2 overall is this final paper. That's the big main thing that they're getting the most points for. But I chunk it out. So each one of these steps is a different assignment here in the course that allows students to work a little bit at a time. So each week they're doing a little bit on the project. So that way by the time they get to this final paper, they almost have the entire paper completely written. They've gotten feedback on it. I know they're on the right page. They know on the right page. And the final paper ends up not being a big deal. So even though this is a statistics class, I have students writing 4 papers. And these are 4 research style papers: introduction, methods, title page, abstract, full statistics, results, discussion, appendix, the full meal deal. And I have my students do 4 of those in a stats class. So, but it works. And that's because you break it apart a little bit at a time. And I get feedback again and again from students about how much they appreciate that little chunking. So the chunking out a little bits at a time instead of just all of a sudden. Because I think most of us know that if you assign a big paper for a student and it's not due until whenever the date, most students won't start that until the day or maybe day or 2 days before, right? And so this way students kind of don't have the option to wait until the last minute because I'm kind of forcing them into those little bits. So Yeah. Oh, okay. So here's someone I was thinking about during the first week. Okay. So what you're thinking of is what I call my student survey. And so for my student survey, um, I ask them, what name and pronouns would you like me to use? So I ask them, what's that you would like? What type of computer technology will you use to work on your course? Do you have access to a working printer? This one is actually really important. It wasn't as important before the pandemic. Since the pandemic, a lot of my students don't have access to come on campus or to a library to use a printer or even their own work. So this becomes really important, and I've started sending out packets of printings to students. What's your backup plan for completing assignments? Is there anything you can think of that might prevent you from being successful? And then I go into, now I will not say these are not questions I would normally ask students in a regular class, but I then go through and ask my students a lot of other questions, and I collect this data, clean it up, and this becomes our data for Project One. And so that actually gets at another component of, as you're building out your course, try to make your assignments as relevant and interesting to your students as possible, in terms of them being from real life, from real things. So instead of, for Project One, me just giving my students, I could just give my students some data and say, hey, we're going to analyze this data and write a paper on it. Well, that's great. If I just gave my students that data, how interested do you think they would be in it? I'm like, oh, well, here's some data that someone's giving to me. Instead, what I do is I actually do collect that data from our students, and then they work through basically their own data. Now I strip out identifying information, so don't worry. I'm not, letting students know, information about other students in terms of like this student and here's their specific data. But students are able to basically at the end of this project tell the story of who are the students in our class. I actually found it was really, really awesome. I just had a student say, I've always felt really alone in my classes because I'm an older student, I'm taking full-time classes, I work full-time, and I have kids. And this project actually, made me see that I'm not alone, that there are other students in this class who are just like me. And so that feeling, she goes, I don't feel like I'm alone anymore. I don't feel like the other students wouldn't understand me. She goes, because I now understand that the students in our class have, lots of different backgrounds and are doing lots of different things. And some are even busier than I am. And like, what an amazing, you want to talk about building with kindness and kind of inserting kindness into your curriculum, this project. And so that's something else. In fact, that was something I just tweeted about, I think it was last week. And it's that don't forget that your projects, your assignments can actually help students feel more connected to each other, to the class, as well as covering the content. And this is just, I think, a really great example of taking that content and then flipping it around. And so students are really interested, right? So instead of me just giving them data, I give students, here's the data I collected from you. This is your class data. Tell me the story of who's in our class. And they love it. And they love this project. My second project, the students actually got to vote on what topic they wanted to do for their second project. And they're starting to collect data this week on COVID-19 vaccine and who's going to get the vaccine and demographics. And so that's the topic they picked. So they're all invested. They're going to go collect data themselves. Then we'll pool it together and then they'll analyze it. So there's lots of different things there that the students are all really motivated and kind of just pulling it in and keeping them going because it's something that they're interested in. They then get to compare store prices, and this is an individual one where they pick two stores and pick items that they want to compare at both stores to see which store has the cheaper prices or which store has the more expensive prices or the stores equal in price. And then we do a school success, and this one has to do with high school success and what variables students think play into school success. And then they actually go out, collect the real data from the Illinois State Report Card, and they analyze it to see, are there hypotheses? And they each have their own individual hypotheses that they want to test were accurate in terms of what determines school success and what do they even think, what variable do they consider to be school success? So all of these things And I know this is very statistics focused, but at the same time, I'm hoping it gives you maybe some ideas of ways that you can pull in the outside world. And I know you're thinking, well, how does that relate to kindness? Well, it's kindness in terms of the students being able to relate to it. The students don't feel like that's something that's not a part of who I am. And so it allows them to better, they understand it. They actually get it, and then they can apply it outwards and use it for other things. Also, your overall tone in the course is so important. I know we kind of got off track, but even just in your welcome. So in the welcome, and I sometimes will do a video. This time I didn't do a video because I was doing more videos for some other things like the walkthrough and my syllabus. But so I've got this welcome, but the really big thing is here are the ways I've designed this course to help you in your journey. And then I literally go through and I set the tone and telling the students, here's how I've set you up for success in the course. Another one that I think just is huge is a lot of our students have anxiety coming into our classes, regardless of your content. I mean, unless you're teaching something like super fun. I don't, because I teach statistics and most students are not super excited. And so my students get into my class and they're really freaked out. They're maybe phobic of math. They're phobic of maybe they just don't think like even college is for them. And so we need to work through that anxiety because once again, if students have that anxiety, they can't get to where they need to be. And one of the great ways that I do this that students really appreciate is goals for this course. And so I have them read advice from previous students. And so this is feedback I've gotten from previous students. And then they go through after reading tips on setting goals and they set goals. So I literally have taken feedback from my previous semester students and I break it apart and I let students see feedback from students who were successful in the course. And it's basically like, don't freak out. You can do this. It will be okay. And so just by doing this one assignment, I'm able to get students to calm down and not feel like the whole world is crashing and burning. I actually had a student tell me they felt like they were going to take a death march when they registered for my course. And so this takes them from feeling like they're on a death march registering for my course to this course is manageable. I can do this. So going through, there's lots of different examples of different ways that you can kind of integrate that kindness into your course. One more thing before I flip back to the presentation, and that would be my feedbacks that I'm able to provide. And so these feedbacks are kind of my opportunity. And so students say, okay, I'm going to take this. And I ask students every week, how are things going? The questions vary. So, how is it using Minitab for the first time? And something new that I've started since the pandemic is I've just started throwing in, so here's one of my favorite make you smile scenes from a movie. I love the song, the little bits of humor scattered throughout. Optional, what's one of your favorite scenes from a movie? And so I've just started offering and then a little, you've got this. I've just started offering little fun things to my students so they get to know me, but then I can get to know them. This last week it had to do with music and them letting me know like what's their favorite like get pumped up music song is. And so I was literally like, as I was grading this weekend, I was like listening to their songs that they had recommended. And so what a great way for me to connect with my students and my students to connect with me. Do you do a video explaining every assignment? Just about, yes, I really do almost for every assignment. And a lot of times it's not a very long video, but students really appreciate that. Students required to show you videos during live class. I don't have a live class, so I don't run my course like that. I have some optional Zoom sessions, but that's it. So I don't, from that perspective, come to tomorrow's session with the Zoom one from Sue Nugent, and you'll hopefully learn all about that. So first week of class, the official welcome to class email, openly discuss potential class pressure points, facilitate introductions and learn about your students, low stakes assignments. So if you're using different types of technology, don't wait until the first time you want to use that technology. Like don't use Zoom for the first time for its worth points and we're doing all this big stuff. Have like a Zoom open house ahead of time. If you're using, in my case, I use Minitab, which is a statistical program. I have a low stakes assignment. Just basically, did they get the program to even open, and can they open a file? So start with some low stakes assignments. And then just check in with students. How are they doing, especially ones who maybe aren't logging in or didn't do well during that first week. Throughout the semester, just promote a positive, safe learning environment. Provide meaningful weekly communication. Each week you should be posting an announcement, sending an email, something like just welcoming the students to the week, letting them know, hey, here's what's going on, here's things to look out for. Respond to students in a timely manner. Provide timely and meaningful grading feedback. Encourage communication between students and between the teacher and the students. Ask students for feedback on how things are going, and monitor student progress and participation. So this isn't really as much the building. This is just kind of promoting these things throughout. Biggest thing is communication is key. Just keep in communication with your students. If the students drop off, that's when you need to communicate even more with them, and potentially with, if you've got any type of early intervention resources at your college, reach out to them and get them hooked up with your students. So another student perspective, thank you for asking and always being willing to help me, even if I didn't complete an assignment on time. It helps us who aren't as passionate about math. I don't understand that. How can students not be passionate about math? Care to do our best, since you care about our success as individuals. And then just be kind to yourself. And I think that was really emphasized in this morning's session. You can't pour from an empty cup, so take care of yourself first. That's so vital. And then overall, just go spread kindness like confetti. And I know that might not fit with your personality, but kindness doesn't have to be, I'm an outgoing kindness person, and it doesn't have to be an outgoing kindness. It's just, truly making sure your students know that you're there for them and that you're there for their success, and to be there, to help them with whatever they need. So that is it. I'm only 2 minutes over, Rob. I tried. I'm happy to stick around and answer additional questions afterwards. So if anyone wants to ask any other questions or wants me to pull something up, I'm happy to answer additional questions, but that's it. Thank you so much. Let's see. Oh, we've got, I would explain assignments, offer assignments. Yes, timely is within a week. I would say yes, definitely within a week if possible. I know sometimes if you've got big papers or projects, sometimes it might take longer than a week, but I always make sure students are aware of the timeline if it's a bigger project. Our LMS makes it pretty time consuming to do videos. I would go ahead, I would try something like Screencast-O-Matic or Snagit. So potentially, maybe pick a different type of video creation software that are easy to use, and try making some video that way. And then you could even put them on YouTube and then embed them into your course. But honestly, video is so huge that I get that feedback time and time again from my students, how much they appreciate, truly. I think almost every week in a feedback, I get students saying, thank you for your videos. Thank you for the videos. The videos are what help me understand the content. The videos are what make the difference. In fact, I once had a student say, I like that you actually teach the course. And so the student was equating me making videos with me teaching the course. So it wasn't that I had designed this beautiful course. It wasn't that I had found all of these great resources. It was that I was making my own video. And just making my own video is what the student equated to teaching my course. So whether or not that's correct or not, because I think a lot more goes into the course, obviously, the students often equate you teaching the course with videos that you create, or audios, or probably even those live Zoom sessions that you might do with students. All right.
Well, that's all awesome. So let's just put a little button on this, and everyone please thank Kona Jones. If you can, please give her a round of applause for a wonderful session. And let me just throw up the slide for the thing.
Then I need to stop sharing, I think. Yeah. There you go, Rob.
All right, thank you. Let me just.
Yep.
So just to remind everyone, our next session is tomorrow. how to encourage student interaction in Zoom meetings at 10 a.m. with Susan Nugent, online support and instructional technology support from Lakeland College. Links to attend the live sessions are on the conference website and also in your registration confirmation email. If you have any questions on registration or accessing the sessions, please contact Jeff Newell at jeff.newell@illinois.gov. And the ILCO site is, of course, ilco.net. Recordings of these presentations and handouts will be available at the conference site on ilco.net following the conference. So that's the end of our session today. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. Thank you, Kona. And she may stay around to answer a few more questions.
If anyone has any questions, I'm good. The kids have been quiet, so husband must have kept them corralled. So we're good. I'm good. Woohoo!
Okay. But if you have to leave now, thank you so much for attending, everyone.
Yeah. Or even just comments or what you're doing to promote kindness. How are you doing, Rob?
Doing pretty well. Just,
yeah.
Like everyone, just plugging along. We're obviously home today due to the weather here, but...
Now, have you been back on campus, or?
Yeah, we have been back, mostly back, but we're still